The Prayer Book Rebellion, Prayer Book Revolt, Prayer Book Rising. Western Rising or Western Rebellion was a popular revolt in Devon and Cornwall in 1549. In that year, the Book of Common Prayer, presenting the theology of the English Reformation, was introduced. The change was widely unpopular, particularly in areas of still firmly Catholic religious loyalty such as Lancashire. Citation needed. Along with poor economic conditions, the attack on the Catholic Church led to an explosion of anger in Devon and Cornwall, initiating an uprising. In response, Edward Seymour, 1st Duke of Somerset, sent Lord John Russell with an army composed partly of German and Italian mercenaries to suppress the revolt. Background. One probable cause of the Prayer Book Rebellion is the religious changes recently implemented by the government of the new King, Edward VI. In the late 1540s, Lord Protector Somerset, on behalf of the young king, introduced a range of legislative measures as an extension of the Reformation in England and Wales. The primary aim being to change theology and practices, particularly in areas of traditionally Roman Catholic religious loyalty, for example, in Cornwall and Devon. When traditional religious processions and pilgrimages were banned, commissioners were sent out to remove all symbols of Catholicism, in line with Thomas Cranmer's religious policies favouring Protestantism ever more. In Cornwall, this task was given to William Body, whose perceived desecration of religious shrines led to his murder on 5 April 1548. By William Kylter and Pasco Trevian at Helston. This pressure on the lower classes was compounded by the recent poll tax on sheep. This would have affected the region significantly, the West Country being an area of sheep farming. Rumours circulating that the tax would be extended to other livestock may have increased the discontent. A damaged social structure then meant this local uprising was not sufficiently dealt with by landowners nearby. The Marquess of Exeter, a large landowner in Stamford Courtney, had recently been attainted. His successor, Lord Russell, was based in London and rarely came out to his land. It is possible this created a lack of local power that would have normally been expected to quell the revolt. It is possible that the roots of the rebellion can be traced back to Cornwall's own ancient wish for independence from England, meaning they were loath to accept new laws from a central government geographically distant from them. More recently, the Cornish Rebellion of 1497 and the subsequent destruction of monasteries from 1536 through to 1545 under King Henry VIII had brought an end to the formal scholarship, supported by the monastic orders, that had sustained the Cornish and Devonian cultural identities. The dissolution of Glasney College and Crantock College played a significant part in fomenting opposition to future cultural reforms. It has been argued that the Catholic Church had proved itself extremely accommodating of Cornish language and culture, and that government attacks on the traditional religion had reawakened the spirit of defiance in Cornwall, and in particular the majority Cornish-speaking Far West. Immediate retribution followed with the execution of 28 Cornishmen at Launceston Castle. One execution of a traitor of Cornwall occurred on Plymouth Hoe. Town accounts give details of the cost of timber for both gallows and poles. Martin Jeffrey, the pro-Catholic priest of St. Keverne, near Helston, was taken to London. After execution, his head was impaled on a staff erected upon London Bridge as was customary. Stamford Courtney and the immediate beginnings of the uprising. The new prayer book was not uniformly adopted, and in 1549 the Act of Uniformity made it unlawful to use the Latin liturgical rites from Whitsunday 1549 onwards. Magistrates were given the task of enforcing the change. Following the enforced change on Whitsunday, on Whitmonday the parishioners of Stamford Courtney and Devon compelled their priest to revert to the old service. The rebels argued that the New English liturgy was but like a Christmas game. This claim was probably related to the book's provision for men and women to file into the choir on different sides to receive the sacrament, which seemed to remind the Devon men of country dancing. Justices arrived at the next service to enforce the change. An altercation at the service led to a proponent of the change being killed by being run through with a pitchfork on the steps of the church house. Following this confrontation, a group of parishioners from Samford Courtenay decided to march to Exeter to protest at the introduction of the new prayer book. As the group of rebels moved through Devon, they gained large numbers of Catholic supporters and became a significant force. Marching east to Crediton, the Devon rebels laid siege to Exeter, demanding the withdrawal of all English liturgies. Although a number of the inhabitants in Exeter sent a message of support to the rebels, the city refused to open its gates. The gates were to stay closed because of the siege for over a month. To 2 decades of oppression were lately added 2 years of rampant inflation, in which wheat prices had quadrupled. Along with the rapid enclosure of common lands, the attack on the church, which was felt to be central to the rural community, led to an explosion of anger. In Cornwall, an army gathered at the town of Bodmin under the leadership of its mayor, Henry Bray, and 2 staunch Catholic landowners, Sir Humphrey Arundel of Helland and John Winslade of Tregarrick. Many of the gentry sought protection in old castles. Some shut themselves in St. Michael's Mount, where they were besieged by the rebels, who started a bewildering smoke screen by burning trusses of hay. This, combined with the shortage of food and the distress of women, forced him to surrender. Sir Richard Grenville found refuge in the ruins of Trematton Castle. Deserted by many of his followers, the old man was enticed outside to parley. He was seized and the castle ransacked. Sir Richard and his companions were imprisoned in Launceston jail. The Cornish army then proceeded to march east across the Tamar border into Devon to join with the Devon rebels near Crediton. The religious aims of the rebellion were highlighted in the slogan, "Kill all the gentlemen and we will have the 6 Articles up again," and ceremonies as they were in King Henry's time. However, it also implies a social cause. That later demands included limiting the size of households belonging to the gentry, theoretically beneficial in a time of population growth and unemployment, possibly suggests an attack on the prestige of the gentry. Certainly such contemporaries as Thomas Cranmer took this view, condemning the rebels for deliberately inciting a class conflict by their demands to diminish their strength and to take away their friends, that you might command gentlemen at your pleasures. Protector Somerset himself saw dislike of the gentry as a common factor in all of the 1549 rebellions. Indeed, all hath conceived a wonderful hate against the gentlemen, and taketh them all as their enemies. The Cornish rebels were also concerned with the use of the English language in the new prayer book. The language map of Cornwall at this time is quite complicated, but philological studies have suggested that the Cornish language had been in territorial retreat throughout the Middle Ages. Summarizing these researches, Stoyle says that by 1450, the county was divided into 3 main linguistic blocks. West Cornwall was inhabited by a population of Celtic descent, which was mostly Cornish-speaking. The western part of East Cornwall was inhabited by a population of Celtic descent, which had largely abandoned the Cornish tongue in favour of English, and the eastern part of East Cornwall was inhabited by a population of Anglo-Saxon descent, which was entirely English-speaking. In any case, the West Cornish reacted badly to the introduction of English in the 1549 services. The 8th article of the demands of the Western rebels states, "And so we the Cornish men utterly refuse thrice new English." Responding to this, however, Archbishop Cranmer asked why the Cornishmen should be offended by holding the service in English rather than Cornish, when they had before held it in Latin and not understood that. Confrontations. In London, King Edward VI and his Privy Council became alarmed by this news from the West Country. On instructions from the Lord Protector, the Duke of Somerset, one of the Privy Councillors, Sir Gawain Carew, was ordered to pacify the rebels. At the same time, Lord John Russell was ordered to take an army, including German and Italian mercenaries, and impose a military solution. The rebels were of many different backgrounds, some farmers, some tin miners, and some fishermen. Cornwall appears to have had a significantly larger militia than other areas of a similar size. Credit and confrontation after the rebels passed Plymouth. Devonian knights Sir Gawain and Sir Peter Carew were sent to negotiate. Meeting the Devon rebels at Crediton, they found the approaches blocked and were attacked by longbowmen. Shortly before the Cornish rebels arrived, Arundel now divided his combined force, sending one force to Clyst St Mary to assist the villagers, with the main army advancing upon Exeter, where it besieged the city for 5 weeks. The siege of Exeter. The rebel commanders unsuccessfully tried to persuade John Blackadder, Exeter's pro-Catholic mayor, to surrender the town. The city gates were closed as the initial force of some 2,000 gathered outside. Battle of Fenny Bridges. On the 2nd of July, Lord John Russell, 1st Earl of Bedford's initial force had reached Honiton. It included 160 Italian arquebusiers and 1,000 lanzknechts, German foot soldiers, under the command of Lord William Grey. With promised reinforcements from Wiltshire and Gloucestershire, Russell would have more than 8,600 men, including a cavalry force of 850 men, all of them well armed and well trained. Russell had estimated the combined rebel forces from Cornwall and Devon at only 7,000 men. On the 28th of July, Arundel decided to block their approach to Exeter at Fenny Bridges. The result of this conflict was inconclusive, and around 300 on each side were reported to have died, with Lord Russell and his army returning to Honiton. Battle of Woodbury Common. Lord Russell's reinforcements arrived on the 2nd of August, and his army of 5,000 men began a march upon Exeter, westward, across the Downs. Russell's advance continued on to Woodbury Common, where they pitched camp. On the 4th of August the rebels attacked, but the result was inconclusive, with large numbers of prisoners taken by Lord Russell. Battle of Clyst St Mary. Arundel's forces regrouped with the main contingent of 6,000 at Clyst St Mary, but on the 5th of August were attacked by a central force led by Sir William Francis. After a ferocious battle, Russell's troops gained the advantage, leaving 1,000 Cornish and Devonians dead and many more taken prisoner. Clyst Heath massacre. Russell pitched camp on Clyst Heath, and it was here that 900 bound and gagged prisoners had their throats slit in 10 minutes. According to the chronicler John Haywood, Battle of Clyst Heath. When news of the atrocity reached Arundel's forces, a new attack took place early on the 6th of August. Lord Grey was later to comment that he had never seen the like, nor taken part in such a murderous fray, as he had led the charge against the Scots in the Battle of Pinkie Cleugh. This was a telling statement. Some 2,000 died at the Battle of Clyst Heath. A group of Devon men went north up the valley of the Exe, where they were overtaken by Sir Gawain Carew, who left the corpses of their leaders hanging on gibbets from Dunster to Bath. Relief of Exeter. Lord Russell continued his attack with the relief of Exeter. In London, a proclamation was issued allowing the lands of those involved in the uprising to be confiscated. Arundel's estates were transferred to Sir Gawain Carew, and Sir Peter Carew was rewarded with all of John Winslade's Devon estates. Battle of Samford Courtenay. Lord Russell was under the impression that the Cornish had been defeated, but news arrived that Arundel's army was regrouping at Samford Courtenay. This interrupted his plans to send 1,000 men into Cornwall by ship to cut off his enemy's retreat. Russell's forces were strengthened by the arrival of a force under Provost Marshal Sir Anthony Kingston. His army now numbered more than 8,000, vastly outnumbering what remained of his opposition. Lord Grey and Sir William Herbert led the attack, and contemporary Exeter historian John Hooker wrote that the Cornish would not give in until most of their number had been slain or captured. Lord John Russell reported that his army had killed between 500 and 600, and his pursuit of the Cornish retreat killed a further 700. Aftermath. Many escaped, including Arundel, who fled to Launceston. There, he was later to be captured and taken to London with Winslade, who was caught at Bodmin. In total, over 5,500 people lost their lives in the rebellion. Further orders were issued on behalf of the king by the Lord Protector the Duke of Somerset and Archbishop Thomas Cranmer for the continuance of the onslaught. Under Sir Anthony Kingston, English and mercenary forces then moved throughout Devon and into Cornwall and executed or killed many people before the bloodshed finally ceased. Proposals to translate the prayer book into Cornish were also suppressed. The loss of life in the Prayer Book Rebellion and subsequent reprisals, as well as the introduction of the English Prayer Book, is seen as a turning point in the Cornish language, for which, unlike Welsh, a complete Bible translation was not produced. Research has also suggested that, prior to the rebellion, the Cornish language had strengthened and more concessions had been made to Cornwall as a nation, and that anti-English sentiment had been growing stronger, providing additional impetus for the rebellion. Bishop of Truro apology for the response to the rebellion. In June 2007, the then Bishop of Truro, the RTREVD Bill IND, was reported as saying that the massacre during the vicious suppression of the Prayer Book Rebellion more than 450 years ago was an enormous mistake, for which the Church of England should be ashamed. Speaking at a ceremony at Pellant, he said, "I am often asked about my attitude to the Prayer Book Rebellion, and in my opinion, there is no doubt that the English government behaved brutally and stupidly and killed many Cornish people. I don't think apologizing for something that happened over 500 years ago helps. But I am sorry about what happened and I think it was an enormous mistake." Bibliography. Primary sources: Holinshead, Raphael. The Chronicles, comprising the description and history of England, the description and history of Ireland, the description and history of Scotland, first collected and published by Raphael Holinshead, William Harrison, and others. Now newly augmented and continued to the year 1586 by John Hooker, alias Vowel Gent, and others. 3 vols. London. John Harrison, 1586–87. John Hooker, Description of the City of Exeter, ed. Walter J. Hart. W. Chopin H. Tapley Soper, 3 Pts. Exeter. Devon and Cornwall Record Society, 1919–1947. Nicholas Pocock, Troubles Connected with the Prayer Book of 1549, Camden Society, New Series, Volume 37, 1884. Secondary sources: Ian Arthurson, Fear and Loathing in West Cornwall. 7 New Letters on the 1548 Rising, Journal of the Royal Institution of Cornwall, New Series 2, Volume 3, Pts. 3/4, 2000, pp. 97–111. Margaret Aston, Segregation in Church, in W.J. Shields and Diana Wood, Women in the Church, Oxford. Basil Blackwell, 1990, pp. 242–281. Julian Cornwall, The Revolt of the Peasantry, 1549, London. Rutledge and Kegan Paul, 1977. A.H. Curation, The Holy Communion, 1549, Church Quarterly Review, Volume 164, 1963, pp. 148–159. Eamon Duffy, The Voices of Morbarth. Reformation and Rebellion in an English Village, New Haven, Connecticut, London. Yale University Press, 2001. ISBN 0-300-09825-1. Anthony Fletcher and Diarmaid MacCulloch, Tudor Rebellions, 5th ed., Harlow. Pearson Longman, 2004. ISBN 0-582-77285-0. Diarmaid MacCulloch, Thomas Cranmer. A Life, New Haven, Connecticut, London. Yale University Press, 1996. ISBN 0-300-07448-4. Roger B. Manning, Violence and Social Conflict in Mid-Tudor Rebellions, Journal of British Studies, Volume 16, 1977, pp. 18–40. Joanna Mattingly, The Helston Shoemakers Guild and a Possible Connection with the 1549 Rebellion. Cornish Studies, Volume 6, 1998, pp. 23-45. Francis Rose Troop, The Western Rebellion of 1549. An account of the insurrections in Devonshire and Cornwall against religious innovations in the reign of Edward VI. London. Smith, Elder, 1913. Mark Stoyle, The Dissidents of Despair, Rebellion and Identity in Early Modern Cornwall, Journal of British Studies, Volume 38, 1999, pp. 423-444. Valdo Vinay, Reformatory Elok Contadine. Scritti polemica relative alla ribellion dei contadini nella Corno Valerie nel Devonshire sotto Edoardo Vi. Rivista di Storia e Letteratura Religiosa. Volume 3, 1967, pp. 203-251. Joyce Ewing's The Southwestern Rebellion of 1549, Southern History, Volume 1, 1979, pp. 99-122.